Hello guys, welcome back to Splunk interview questions part 4. I had already created a playlist for all my Splunk interview questions. Please do refer all of them and then you can check the part 4. In this video, question number 1, what is a deployment server used for? What is a server class and apps? How do you deploy base configurations like inputs.conf, outputs.conf from deployment server? So let's understand what is deployment server. As I spoke about this in my previous video. Deployment server is basically if you are sending a data, if you are sending inputs.conf file from number of forwarders to one indexer, instead of going to every forwarder, okay, you can reach out by using the deployment server. You can send the data easily. Okay, so that is just for our understanding what deployment server is. Now, deployment server is a Splunk instance which is used for polling from a different deployment clients like indexer, universal forwarder, heavy forwarder, etc. Let's talk about what server class is. Server class is used for grouping a different servers based on the classes. Like I have a group of all Unix based servers. I can create a class called Unix based servers and group all the servers under this class. Similarly, for all the Windows based servers, I can create a Windows based servers class and group all the servers under this class. Okay, so that will answer your question of what is server class. Now, what is apps? Apps are basically, in general terms, when it comes to Splunk, we say apps are used to create the user knowledge objects, and here apps are basically a set of stanza which is deployed to a different members of a server class. Now, when we set up a server class and assign them apps or a set of apps, we need to restart Splunk. Okay, we need to restart Splunk D, a system level process. Once it is done, any new app updates will be automatically sent to all the servers. Okay. Now the next question, what is phone home interval and what is token? Phone home interval is a time interval for which a particular deployment client will keep polling you a different server. Okay, for example, last 2 seconds or 10 seconds, etc. Also, we can say that we can check the which machine is not reporting to Splunk. You can also check that using phone home interval. Now, what is token? Token is a placeholder for a set of values for a particular variables. For example, name is equal to token token 1 token, and now you here the name, the field, you have multiple values like you can take any name like Alex, Kevin, Ajit, etc. The value that a particular token will hold completely depends on the selection. Okay, depends on that particular selection. Tokens are always enclosed between a dollar symbol, like the example which is given above. Okay? The example which is given here, you can based on that you will work on the token. Now the next question, how do you reset an admin password? Okay, first you stop the Splunk Enterprise and find the password file for the instance. Okay, now go to Splunk Home etc password and rename it to the Splunk. Create a file. You need to create a new file like userseed.conf in your Splunk Home etc systems local. This is very important. Okay, so systems local, Splunk Home etc systems local directory. In this file, add the following text, that is user info like password equal to new password, new underscore password. Okay, in the place of new password, insert the password you would like to use. Start Splunk Enterprise and use new password to log into the instance from Splunk Web. Okay. In case if you previously created other users and know their login details, copy and paste their credentials from the password file and into the password file and restart the Splunk. It depends. Okay, if you have that already created, then you can take it and rename your password. Okay, so that is how typically you reset the admin password in Splunk. Now the next question, how to identify which port Splunk is running on? Okay, go to bin folder and run the following command, Splunk show web port. Okay, To know the management port, you need to run this command, Splunk show. You need to give that particular port. Okay, Splunk D port. So it's a simple question. Just remember this also. This is also important question. Now let's move to next question. How do you read data from third layer of the bucket? Okay, this is bucket. I mean, bucketing I have already explained in my previous videos. Very, very important questions. You can expect a question on buckets in every interview. Here, if you see, how do you read data from third layer of the bucket? Okay, buckets are generally resides in Splunk home var lib Splunk default db, right? By default, Splunk sets all the default size to 10 GB for all the buckets on the 64-bit operating system. Third layer of the bucket refers to cold bucket, which is still searchable. Okay, we all know third layer of the bucket, which is a cold bucket. Here data is searchable always. Until the data reaches to the frozen bucket, you can search the data actually. All right, now the next question. A user is not able to search with a particular index. A request to face an issue, what will you do? It's kind of a scenario based question. Okay, pretty much easy question. We need to go to settings first, settings, and then access control. Go to roles, user role. Okay, you need to check the your user role indexes and check if the user has read access user has read access to index. You need to check that particular access of the user. Does he has read access or not? Okay, so now let's look at one more question. What is clustering? Why clustering? Types of clustering. Okay, so this is general sort of question. What is clustering? Indexer clusters are groups of Splunk enterprise indexes configured to replicate each other's data so that the system keeps multiple copies of all the data by maintaining multiple identical copies of a Splunk enterprise data. Clusters prevent all loss while promoting data availability for searching. So in simple words, in other terms, you can also say that clustering is basically when you have a high availability data, when you have a more data, that is where clustering will come into picture. Okay, now if you see, you have multiple sort of clusterings in when it comes to Splunk. You have index clustering and you have search head clustering. Okay, and you also have just for your information, it is you have single site clustering, multi-site clustering. These are the clusters as far as the Splunk is concerned. Okay, so that is the answer for this question. Now the very important question, what is a search factor and what is a replication factor? Okay, the search factor determines the number of searchable copies of data the indexer cluster maintains. In other words, the search factor determines the number of searchable copies of each bucket. Okay, remember this. And the default value of a search factor is 2, meaning that the cluster maintains 2 searchable copies of all the data. The search factor must be less than or equal to the replication factor. This is one more important point that we have to remember. So this is about search factor. Now what is the replication factor? Okay, as part of setting up the index clustering, you specify the number of copies of the data that you want to cluster maintain. Peer needs to store incoming data in buckets, and the cluster maintains multiple copies of each bucket. The cluster stores each bucket copy the separate peer node. The number of copies of each bucket that the cluster maintains is a replication factor. Okay, search factor and the replication factor. Okay, you can easily also frame your sentences like, what is search factor? Is search factor is something which will determines the number of copies that system determines. I mean, it talks about the number of copies that system determines, whereas search factor it talks about like number of immediately searchable copies that the system determines. You can say that. So replication factor by default it is 2, and search factor by default you can give the value 3. Okay, so these are the important questions, friends, I thought of sharing with you in this specific video. So please do watch this and learn for Splunk interview whenever you are preparing for it. All right, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Happy learning.